You set a schedule for your interviews and then all these current events happen and you're like, wait, first I have to record about this. Obviously, we did a lot of pivoting to quickly talk about tariff, and I really appreciated all the different perspectives that we got on it.
Also got to talk to Victor from VOS Selections, who is the main plaintiff going up in the Supreme Court against the tariffs, which is such an exciting story. Apparently, they're trying to erect a statue of him in Italy, a very Italian response.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love that. That is so Italian. And the other very Italian piece will be if there's a giant ribbon cutting in front of it. Italians
Absolutely.
love ribbon cutting.
Oh, yeah. Yes, tariffs, definitely. I think between the two of us, we covered that on all angles.
Welcome to Masterclass US Wine Market. In this show, we'll break down the complexities of selling wine in the US by discussing the relevant issues of today with experts from around the globe. Each episode serves up 3 key insights to help elevate your winery's presence in the US market. So grab a pen and paper and let's pave the way for your success in the US.
Hello, welcome to Masterclass US Wine Market on the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Barbara. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Juliana. It's so fun when we get to do this together.
I know. We need to do this more often. It is very fun. We are here to recap. It is December 22nd. Oh my gosh. So we're here to recap 2025. Quite a year. We've had a great year on the podcast. So we're to kind of just recap everything that happened on the show this year.
Yeah, so a little bit of a different format today since we'll be talking kind of about what we've learned from our guests and using our guest interviews to talk about, where we've been, where we're headed. So yeah, what are our takeaways, Juliana?
Our takeaways, Stevie's favorite part of the format of this podcast. She's like, don't forget the takeaways. Our takeaways. Number 1, we're going to just talk about the themes that kept showing up in our podcast this year, topics that people were passionate about, or just themes that seem to particularly resonate with what's going on in the wine industry and in Italian wine in the US. The most actionable advice our guests gave on the show, because after all, it's supposed to be a masterclass with some tangible insights. And then just for fun, how will Italian wines show up in this holiday season celebrations as we both spend time with family and drink some great wines? So those are our 3 takeaways for today.
I'm pretty excited about it, especially to talk about what we'll drink.
And what we'll eat.
Yes. As you said, we've had some really great guests this year. So just one more additional moment of gratitude for all the people that take the time to talk to us. I'll ask you first, Juliana, since you're the OG host.
Steve Ray's the OG host, actually.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Passing the reins to us 2 years ago.
Well, I'd love to let you start. So what were some of the themes that really kept, coming up with your guests this year that really just felt the most relevant?
Yeah, great question. There was actually, I noticed quite a bit of some repetition, especially in those 3 questions we ask at the end and advice about the market. I think something that kept coming up, just this overarching theme of going back to some of the basics. It was a challenging year in so many ways for the wine industry and for imported wine especially. So it was okay, what do we do? And it was let's refocus a little bit on the basics, meaning relationships and people, coming back to treating people well, treating your partners well, investing in your customers, really being physically in the market as much as possible and as much as you can. So that basic fundamental piece of the wine industry that we all love of community and people. I felt like that came up a lot in my interviews. I think just also getting back to some of the basics in terms of tactics as it comes to sales and marketing, be at the tastings, get out on the street as much as you can, be in the market again, as much as you can. I felt those things came up quite a bit. I think, less of the how do we attract the next generation? I feel that conversation has shifted and we're seeing younger people are drinking maybe in different ways, but we're starting to see some really exciting headlines coming out no, the next gen is drinking just perhaps differently. So I was happy to see a little bit more, not so much focus on that theme actually, and just a little bit more focus on people's personal stories. But yeah, those were, to me, it was this year of it's a challenging year. Let's come back to really these relationships, these people, and some of the core fundamentals of our industry. Did you get that at all in your interview?
100%. I mean, I think especially, when we look at from a sad perspective, like the problems with isolation in the US, et cetera, right now, it's like you got to be the solution you want to see in the world. If you want people to get together, like come here and get together with them, come here and get to know them. I think that's another thing that kept showing up a lot as well is know your customer. And it sounds so simple, but it's actually like really complex and not something that you can do without being here present with them. You can't just learn it from numbers and demographic.
Exactly. And to me, also, one more thing that kind of came up in terms of like something unique to Italy, because I feel like those themes we talked about kind of apply almost like industry wide, was just how unique Italian culture is, how celebrated it is in America, how much Americans love Italy, Italian, like just the lifestyle, a dolce vita. We saw this resurgence of like the mob wives aesthetic, old Italian restaurants, continuing to be popular. So that is something that I think came up a lot with my interviews too, is like we leaning into more of like the Italianness of Italy.
Yeah.
And also how that can allow new regions, more esoteric wines, like smaller producers to find a foothold here is by really like leaning into the authenticity of the place that they're coming from.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is like, I don't want to speak too broadly, but I think this is a very universal strategy because also in the conversation I had with our expert from Canada, she said the same thing, So speaking for Canada and the US, like we love Italy. We love all things Italian and our culture here is so like intertwined. You cannot separate out like Italian American influence on our culture from the rest of it. So
for sure. What about you, Barbara? What are some of the topics and things that were coming up with the interviews you did this year?
Well, one of the things I love is, you set a schedule for your interviews and then all these current events happen and you're like, wait, first I have to record about this. So obviously we did a lot of pivoting to quickly talk about tariff and I really appreciated all the different perspectives that we got on it. So I interviewed Jason Haas, who is an American producer, but an economist by trade. I love talking to economists because they take numbers and they, put color into all the gray area. So I really like getting their perspective. And then I also talked to Harman Skurnick. So obviously very helpful to talk to an importer directly. I think you talked to some retailers, right? And Ben and F, right? Also about tariffs.
Yeah, definitely. I talked to Ben, who's also USA Wine Trade Alliance. I also talked to Blake Gray a couple of times. He really covers political topics very closely for the wine industry. So I found his interview exciting. And then also got to talk to Victor from VOS Selections, who is the main plaintiff going up in the Supreme Court against the tariffs, which is such an exciting story. Apparently, they're trying to erect a statue of him in Italy. Very Italian response.
Oh my gosh. I love that. That is so Italian. And the other very Italian piece will be if there's a giant ribbon cutting in front of it. Italians
Absolutely.
love ribbon cutting.
Oh, yeah. Yes, tariffs, definitely. I think between the two of us, we covered that on all angles.
I think also talking about younger consumers a lot, but to your point earlier, it was like the issue of younger consumers was, this boogeyman in the room for so long. And I think so many people were able to provide clarity this year because it's not that, younger consumers aren't drinking or they don't want to have fun or any of these things. They're kind of challenging us to change up strategy. And I get it, a way that seems really maybe unnerving for a lot of people, but, change is inevitable.
Yeah. What I tried to do this year is just talk directly to some Gen Z in some of the interviews I did, like, speaking directly to Ryan from Supervino Brothers or Pilar Brito, who's a wine influencer based in LA, and Koki, who's Canadian, but has a huge presence online. And I think just they're all Gen Z and talking to them just a little more directly about their preferences in wine, Italian wine, what they see. So like you said, Barbara, like there are kind of rewriting of the rules, but it's not that they're not drinking. It's just how are we appealing to them perhaps in like some different ways.
Yeah. And I think I so appreciate obviously their own perspective, but maybe reminding everyone, give them a little bit of, I think some people are so hard on them.
I know.
We used to hear about us millennials, we're ruining the wine industry, right? It's like, be a little nicer.
I know, right? Be more welcoming. Exactly.
Yes.
No, it's important for sure.
So, in your interviews and your conversations, how were you kind of seeing the evolution of consumer preferences play out in your conversations, and what strategies were, do you think, really helpful in engaging and retaining customers?
That's a great question. I mean, I think kind of back to what we spoke about in the beginning of coming back to the basics when I talked to whether it was Tim Marson at wine.com, Gary Fish at Gary's Wine Marketplace, like retailers that have that first hand knowledge of like what's selling and the numbers. Like a lot of the classics are still doing really well, or maybe perhaps like re-cementing of some classics, whether Chianti Classico came up time and time again. But Barbaresco and Barolo, like just the classic styles, of course, Prosecco continues to do well. But I think you saw that consumers were going back to maybe some familiar comfort wines. Depending who you spoke to, definitely in maybe markets like New York that are a little more advanced and have always get, first line of all import, more esoteric wines. People, like I had it's not out yet, but I think it'll come out in early January, a great conversation with Michael, who's the newest wine critic at Wine Enthusiast, and he's the wine director at a great restaurant in New York called Peasant. He was really excited about Sardinian wine and, esoteric wines from Lazio and southern Italy. But, that's New York. But I found like when I talked to people that maybe represent a more national perspective, like wine.com or Gary's, it was like a lot of, leaning on some of the basics. So I kind of shows me consumer preferences remain entrenched in the classics, but also in what they perceive as value coming out of Italy from regions like Tuscany and Piedmont. Those were some things that stand out. How about for you? What did you find?
I think, like you're saying, you're really seeing in all of the conversations I've had with people from critics to retailers, the kind of shift away from like the big, more extracted, more oak driven wines and into these more nuanced wines. And this is like such an opportunity for Italy because you are so nuanced just by virtue of the fact that you have so many wine varieties and grape varieties.
That's true.
But then also it always comes back to, I think, the price to value. So as we're talking about, especially with these younger consumers, like getting them excited, they want something maybe different and they want it presented to them in a different way. And, an Italian wine typically isn't as expensive as, maybe a California wine or French wine. And so you've got that.
Yeah. The second part of your question, I think about like what worked to resonate with consumers. Yeah. I don't think there's a single answer there. I think what the conversations I had showed me was that it's really like you have to do everything. And I know no one wants to hear that, but you starting with like your importer, find the right fit, really find the right partner who believes in you and your brand. Like you're never going to be successful without that. I had a really great conversation with Leonardo Locascio a couple weeks ago, and he started Winebow in the 90s. No one knows the landscape better than him as far as importing Italian wine and that history. But it really, starts from believing in your partners and finding the right partner if you're a winery, and then all the way down to through your consumer marketing that you as the winery are responsible for the marketing, not your importer. Yeah. And that you have to develop strategies, whether it's, of course, now you can't get by without social media. So making sure you have a presence online digitally. If you have hospitality, like taking advantage and of that direct to consumer opportunity, which I know is a big specialty of yours, Barbara. And then, again, showing up in the market, going to the events, working the market, being present. There's not like from my guess at least, that there was like one scattershot, one approach. It's scattershot. You have to have every tool in the toolbook, and as it relates to sales and marketing. But curious if you heard from any of your guests anything different or anything surprising as it related to seeing success resonating with consumers.
I think another piece that I agree with everything that you say, and most of my guests were saying a lot of the same. But another piece that it was helpful, it wasn't necessarily surprising, but helpful to get the reminder is I talked to Courtney O'Brien, who's a branding consultant, and we talk often about marketing, but not branding. And they're not one and the same, and they're both very important. And so, first of all, we don't focus on marketing enough, but all of like the attention that we pay to a brand in that way seems to go into marketing per se before branding work is really done. What is branding? It's like understanding what the personality of your wine is and then how to lead with that personality in the marketing. And like, again, goes back also to knowing your customer and like, putting yourself imagine you're speed dating. How do you want to
Yeah.
show up? You got 15 seconds to like put your best foot forward. What are you doing that with? Because you can't put your best foot forward with like 4 different qualities.
Right. Yeah. So setting the foundation of like really understanding who your brand is, who your customer is, what you're offering as a value in a brand. Are you a lifestyle brand that's giving an experience through a label and like a really pretty package? Are you a small producer, making an esoteric wine, Lazio? I know I keep saying Lazio, but you're here to sell 200 cases, and then maybe in that case you're going for niche retailers and restaurants that can champion your brand. But like you said, really first having that foundation of who you are, so critical. So
yeah,
I need to go back and listen to that episode for sure.
She was amazing.
I bet. So obviously we navigated a lot of global challenges this year. We talked about tariffs, that was probably number one as it relates to our industry. But what would you say are some innovations or strategies that you heard from your guests came about as a result? Like, we think back to COVID, we all adapted really quickly in a way as an industry. We started selling online, virtual tastings, all these things. Like we changed quick. And I think humans have that great ability to do that. So what did you hear from your guests as far as how they were navigating the challenges of tariffs and declining consumption and all the other challenges facing the wine industry?
Yeah. So interesting that you call out, how quickly we evolved in COVID when it felt like we had no choice. The situation was like literally do or die. And now all of a sudden, like we're having a little bit of a hard time evolving, changing so quickly.
Right.
But I do think, in my conversations, like the kind of most bang for your buck strategy right now is showing up in exciting places where you're not expected to be there and trying to engage with consumers in a new and exciting way. And yes, that has a lot to do with like welcoming new consumers, welcoming younger consumers to the category, but also it's kind of just like even people that love wine aren't going out and finding wine in the same ways they used to. Like if you look at millennials, like they're not really out in bars right now. They're more at home. And if you look at boomers that used to, go wine tasting every weekend, they're not really doing that anymore. So, and like you said, it's not easy because you have to do many things simultaneously, but also at the same time, I think that you have to really pay attention to one thing at a time. But so you have to be building these things in quick succession so that, once you plant a seed, you can watch it grow, but you're planting one seed at a time, if that makes sense. Because I think if you're trying to build out too many new strategies simultaneously, I think you really suffer, I believe, if you're trying to pay attention to everything, you're not really paying attention to anything.
The follow through, right? And actually seeing something to fruition. But I like what you said about like finding wine in exciting places. I had such a fun conversation with Stacy Buchanan, who's the founder of the Blood of Gods zine and festival in Washington State, which is a heavy metal and wine festival. Like I think
love it.
For ways to appeal to new people, reach new audiences by like meeting them also where they live in other parts of their lives, their music, their food, their hobbies. We've seen, I think that's a great way to get creative about getting wine into new spaces and in front of new consumers too.
And you're living this in action right now. I mean, you're doing so much cool stuff, doing like cool events and collabs with Riuniti.
Yeah, I mean, Lambrusco, I think is I think it is Riuniti in particular, and Stevie's gonna maybe delete this because it's like a brand. I'm just kidding. No, but it is an on-ramp product, I think, of Lambrusco, but especially like something that's slightly sweeter like a Riuniti for new consumers. I mean, they are coming off of a more sweet palate. It's an approachable price point. You can mix it into cocktails. It's lower alcohol. It's 8%. So I feel like it hits on all these different trends that younger consumers are looking for. Not to mention it's a chilled red, right? Like we love a chilled red, and I had a great chilled red last night at dinner at Peasant, actually, and plug that interview again with Michael. But he was talking about how he's so excited about Sardinian red wines because they're chillable. And I was drinking a Monica from Sardinia that he had on the list. That was perfect. So again, I think, reaching new consumers, you have to go out and meet them where they're at and where they're living too. So
definitely.
Yeah, but thank you for letting me plug.
Yes.
What about you? I mean, you've been up exciting things this year. You're still doing your MBA, which is incredibly impressive. But how about you on the work front? What's been kind of exciting and really tapping into some of the things we've talked about on the podcast?
Well, I think when it comes to, talking about how to navigate global challenges, like come on October, we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Also, maybe because I am a product of the California wine industry, I feel so deeply, Robert Mondavi, a rising tide lifts all ships. And I really don't think that we're going to get past all of this without coming together. Like, it's not enough for one brand, even, largest brand in the world, to have a strategy. It's got to be something that happens from all levels of the value chain and in a way that shows unity. So I just think, there is so much value in reminding people in an organized way, so not just in your one-on-one conversations, although there too, that, there's joy in wine, there's culture in wine. Wine is good economics for rural communities. Wine is good economics for many communities. I mean, it's good economics in New York City. It's a special, special product. And I think we need to get back almost to first principles with that, right?
Yeah. And that too, in terms of attracting, I think we think a lot about attracting next gen consumers, but what about next gen industry? Like people that want to sell wine, market wine, like work in this industry. And I think that's a part of the messaging we need to constantly be getting out there to get that next gen excited to be a part of the industry. The more newer people working in the industry, the more drinkers we'll have as well, for sure. Well, let's wind down, Barbara, the same way we do on every episode with our rapid fire quiz with 3 rapid fire questions. I'll start and ask you a question. What is an Italian wine trend or category that you are hoping to see emerge or continue to grow in 2026?
Tough question. I think I have to go Italian sparkling wine because I love sparkling wine so much. And, the value, I always come back to this, but like the price to value of what you're getting coming out from even Franciacorta, so beautiful. It's now getting recognition it deserves. So now a little bit more closer in line with prices of champagne, but like something like Trentadoc. So many producers, even if it's not a DOC necessarily, but so many producers are just making really beautiful bubbles.
Oh, yeah.
Could show up in the market here.
Like,
or sparkling wines from Etna that end up like, I think, I won't say brands, but I can think of a couple that end up in the market here for like $25 and like,
oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Yep. Yes.
Especially as the price of everything goes up, looking for the value.
How about you? What's something you really want to see continue or grow?
Yeah, in terms of trends, like I love these lighter styles. Like I'm really excited about lighter, like lower alcohol, more sessionable wines, things like around 10%. So seeing like maybe some of the Northern Italian white wines that I love so much starting to become more available because I think they're really light, aromatic, and beautiful. Or those like lighter styles of red wines, like we talked about the Monica from Sardinia, or some of these like kind of really like wines that taste great with a chill on them, like lighter reds. So I hope that we just see like more of those wines come into the market, more styles, more varietals, and more different producers. So I'm hoping to kind of continue to see that trend continue because I think it's a good bridge too as we think about people who want to drink less. Like I was at a dinner party last week and somebody looked at the bottle of wine and literally like was looking at the alcohol percentage. Like he was choosing the wine based on the percentage and he was trying to find something lower. So I do think it's like people are more conscious. So, let's give them things that, they're looking for.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm excited for specifically.
Okay. I'll ask the next one. What's a focus for your episodes in 2026?
In 2026, I think I want to continue to have a balance of like these really established voices, like a Leonardo Locascio, a Bobby Stuckey, but then these emerging young voices as well, like Koki or Pilar or Ryan from Super Vino Brothers. So I still really want to keep this like really dynamic, fresh balance of like really different voices, people coming at the industry with different levels of experience, different passions, different occupations. So that's going to be a focus for me, is like just that diversity of voices and experiences, because I think it just lends to more interesting conversations. What about you?
I think the same. Everything you just said reminds me of one of my first guests was Polly Hammond. I love her way of thinking. And she said, I asked her, how do we better start to engage with, new consumers, younger consumers. And she said, start by hiring them. And so I think the same thing about, how do we understand the industry from more angles? Like, let's talk to people from all parts of it who have come at it from, so many different paths, who've been in it for 50 years or 2 years. If you have experience that's relevant, who cares how long it took you to get it?
Yeah, absolutely. So for our listeners, if you have any guests you want to hear from, perspectives, we're always open. So please shoot us a note or message. I think you probably know where to find us by now. All right. And then Barbara, question. Are you traveling over the holidays? Or I know you've had a busy year. Are you going to stick at home?
I'm sticking at home for Christmas, but I am traveling to Mexico, and which I'm very excited for. And I will definitely be using some guest travel hacks, about like traveling with carry-on only. That's like my go-to. Nothing worse than a baggage claim for me.
Definitely never want to add on extra time to the trip for sure.
But I take that back. I won't be able to check on the way over because we are going to be bringing some Italian wine with us. So we will check on the way over.
That's acceptable. If it's for wine, then
yes. How about you?
I will be similarly home for Christmas and traveling for New Year's, traveling on New Year's Eve day, which sometimes I find is actually a travel hack, is travel like on the holiday.
Okay.
People are already where they're going and they're kind of quiet. It's kind of nice. I'm going to throw that in as like a travel hack that I am actually exhibiting this year, is kind of try to travel either on a holiday or quieter day or really early in the morning. I try to get the first out because I tend to find that they don't have as many delays. Airports are quiet, the lines are shorter. So those are my two that I will be trying to follow for the holidays and into 2026.
I love it. Okay. And quick question, just because, what are the Italian wines or foods combined together that you're doing for Christmas?
Always some format of the 7, 9, 12, 13 fishes will happen on Christmas Eve. So that will always be present in our family's house. And we will be pairing it with lots of wines from Colangelo and Partners and Frederick Wildman. So you'll be of the great wines that I work with and that our family works with on the table to celebrate the year. So I'm sure we'll have plenty of Prosecco, plenty of Chianti Classico, plenty of Trento Rocks bubbles as well.
Yes.
So
Alto Adige.
Yes, definitely. I love those wines. Also, maybe I'll make a Lambrusco punch. We'll see. Maybe I get fancy.
Ooh, I love it.
And what are you packing in the suitcase from Mexico?
We are bringing, so my family's from Tuscany, and in Mexico you really got to drink white wine, but the only white wine from Tuscany really is Vernaccia. So we'll bring a lot of Vernaccia.
Cool.
But then also right now my family is really digging Fiano. So it's fun. Also so versatile, so great with the Mexican cuisine and the weather. But then on Christmas itself, very fun. So we're having like a big Christmas Eve with my whole family. There'll be a whole huge number of us. And then on Christmas Day, we're just going to be with my in-law, my mother and father-in-law. So we're only adults, just the four of us. Okay. So we're doing adult Christmas, we're calling it. And I was like, we're each going to make a dish. And I told my husband, I was like, well, I don't know what I'm making for food, but I know the wine I'm going to serve. And then we can decide on the food. So I'm like, we're going to have the Cantina Terlan Pinot Bianco, which I think is one of the most beautiful white wines coming out of Italy. And then from there, we decided to make Canaderli, which is a speck dumpling from Alto Adige. So
nice.
Yes.
Little pairing.
Make sure Colangelo and Partners also knows that Alto Adige is in my house.
Thank you. Thanks for representing. Always.
You're welcome.
All right, Barbara, this was so much fun.
Yes, thank you.
And have a great year as co-host on the podcast. Thank you for being such a great partner. And have a great holiday.
Yep, all the things. Merry, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Ciao.
Ciao.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Masterclass US Wine Market. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay up to date with the latest industry trends, remember to like, follow, and share our podcast. And if you find value in our conversations, please leave us a review to help others discover the show and grow our community. Stay tuned for new episodes every Monday. Until then, brindiamo il vostro successo.